So this is what democracy looks like. Democracy does not look like that fake debate the night before last in Hofstra. That's not a debate. That was a police state that was held in Hofstra, with 1,000 police, with 7 or 8 layers of barrier fences and suppression of our voices. And there were 24 brave, courageous heroes of democracy who put their bodies on the line to call for an open debate that we must have in this. So we deserve that open debate because we are in a crisis. And I want to first just thank everyone who helped create this wonderful event tonight. Thank you to the Green Party. Thank you to Black Lives Matter. Thank you to the Fight for 15. Thank you to Ahmed and the Palestinian Center. And thank you also to the Stop TBX so that we can have a decent, sustainable transportation system. And did I leave anyone out? Thank you to all of you for being the engine of democracy. So I just want to underscore what an incredible moment this is. And, you know, when you run for national office, you have the opportunity to kind of get this bird's eye view of what is going on across the country. And I can tell you, there is no doubt, there is a rebellion in full swing going on. And there is a voter revolt in the making. As you know, I'm going to just come out here in front so I can Our campaign doesn't hide. We talk to people. We talk to the press, we hold press conferences, we don't duck, we don't cover. I think we've given more press conferences in the last month than Hillary Clinton has So last week's speakers here tonight have said so beautifully, and I have to thank all of you. You make my job so easy. I get to come up here and I just say, I agree with everything they already said. We are a frontline campaign. We believe that we must bring the work and the vision and the passion of our frontline struggles that you are leading the way on. We are bringing the struggles of frontline communities to the front lines of a presidential campaign. These are the struggles that we must talk about. These are the struggles that belong in front of the American people, not a ridiculous discussion of where Barack Obama was born, not a discussion of which candidate is the bigger crook, which foundation is more corrupt between Hillary Clinton's foundation or Donald Trump's foundation. Where was the discussion the other night on climate? That discussion. Did anybody happen to see the real debate taking place on Twitter? Has now reached something like 15 million viewers. And we have only just begun because the fight is not over. The fight is just starting. And by the way, while that debate was going on, we were trending #1 on Facebook. that more than 75% of American voters are demanding an open debate. In this country, we not only have a right to vote, we have a right to know who we can vote for. Because, as the other speakers have said so beautifully, we really are in a crisis right now, an unprecedented crisis of historic proportions. And that crisis demands transformational solutions, not the kind of window dressing that we see from Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. And let me give a big thank you right now, also to the people from the Bernie Sanders campaign. Historical Green Party for laying the groundwork. Because together we are burning green together, and we are. So the crises that we face, you've heard about, and I'm just going to add a few words. We have an economic crisis. They tell us we're in a recovery, but for most Americans, as the person speaking for the Fight for 15 said so eloquently, she is in struggle. So many Americans are in struggle. A report came out last week showing that the top 10% now has 75% of wealth in just the hands of the top 10%. But what's really shocking is that the lower 50% of the American population has 1 measly percent of the wealth, a crumb in the hands of 50% of Americans. So average wages now are barely at the poverty level. $15 an hour should be the bare minimum wage. Actually kept pace with the productivity of American workers, that minimum wage would now be more like $20 or $22 an hour. So $15 an hour is an absolute necessity. And this is a good thing for the economy. This is what stimulates the economy from the bottom up and primes the pump, because it is the American consumer who actually creates the economy through what that consumer can spend. And right now, consumers don't have it to spend when half of Americans are struggling to either get out of or to try to stay out of poverty. So this is an absolute necessity. In addition, we call for a Green New Deal, which creates jobs as an emergency, so that every person in this country has the right to a job, a full-time job, at a living wage. And in doing so, we can create 20 million jobs in order to solve the crisis of climate change in one fell swoop. Clean renewable energy by 2030 in time to solve. That means 100% wind, water, and sun, and that we zero out fossil fuels and nuclear power by 2030. Because enormous taxpayer subsidies. If those subsidies were stopped, nuclear power would end right now because it is too expensive, not to mention that there is nothing that we can do with the waste The waste will be here. The toxic, deadly nuclear waste will be here for millions of years. There is simply no place to put it. And with the threat, the reality of climate change, that means drought and that means floods. Those are two things that are absolutely incompatible with nuclear power, because either one of them mean that nuclear power plants are going Fukushima. These are basically weapons of mass destruction, strategically located near population centers. So they must be decommissioned. Power plants are in Florida. Does anyone know? It's too many, whatever it is. But if it's free, just think of this. Sea level rise is coming. What happens to a nuclear power plant located at sea level, which is all of the nuclear power plants in Florida are essentially at sea level or within a couple feet? That means that those nuclear power plants are all going Fukushima when we have sea level rise. So that means we got to do two things. That means we have to decommission those nuclear power plants right now. But it also means we need to declare a state of climate emergency right now to undertake the green new deal right now. Better than anyone. We cannot allow this to happen. We cannot allow sea level to rise 1 foot, let alone 9 feet, let alone 200 feet, which is what is in store if we allow climate change to proceed as we're going. And of course, you may know, fossil fuel emissions are not stabilizing. In spite of a Democratic White House with 2 Democratic houses of Congress, what did we get? We got all of the above, which actually meant massively escalating fossil fuel production. Nature does not care about renewable energy. People care about renewable energy, but what hurts nature is fossil fuel production. That's why we need to shut it all down, and the Democrats are not the solution. Hillary Clinton wants fracking. Donald Trump wants coal. Well, guess what? Coal is obsolete. It is no longer financially viable. But fracking is not. And Hillary Clinton has been very busy promoting fracking through its own office in the Department of State when she was the secretary. And her head of the transition team, Ken Salazar, is a big proponent of fracking. So there's no question. The Democratic Party refused to adopt an anti-fracking plank for its voluntary platform even. It wouldn't even pretend to oppose fracking. So we know where we're going under Hillary Clinton. We are going underwater under Hillary Clinton. Aren't you afraid of Donald Trump? I say, I'm really afraid of climate change, to tell you the truth, and expanding war. And what, as Looney Tunes as Donald Trump is, Hillary Clinton makes no bones about it. She wants to start an air war with Russia over Syria. That's what it means when you have a no-fly zone. And that is her solution to the crisis in Syria, is a no-fly zone, which means we're going to war with a nuclear-armed power when there are 2,000 nuclear weapons on hair-trigger alert. We cannot afford to elect Donald Trump, and we cannot afford to elect Hillary Clinton. democracy, and fortunately we have more than two deadly choices. Instead of shutting down the discussion right now, before people even know that they have another option, we need to actually inform and empower the American voter so that we, the people, can lead the way forward, not the political pundits, not the party operatives who are trying to shut us down. They need to know that the parties of abolition, for the abolition of slavery, they too were called spoilers, but they succeeded in the end and created a far better world. So this Green New Deal not only revives the economy with 20 million living wage jobs, it also stops catastrophic climate change by zeroing out fossil fuels in the time frame that we need. And the other thing that we do, by the way, on the day that we get elected, is we create an immediate ban on all new fossil fuel infrastructure. And in addition, besides reviving the economy, turning the tide on climate change, the Green New Deal also makes the friggin' wars for oil obsolete. We do not need and we cannot justify having 800, 1,000 bases, whatever it is, who's counting and they're not telling. Hundreds and hundreds of bases in approximately 100 countries around the world, safeguarding our access to other people's fossil fuels and their routes of transportation. No other country does this. No other country has done this throughout history. If you add up all the other foreign bases that all the other countries have all put together, you know what it comes to? 30. Something like 30, but we alone have 1,000. What's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this picture is actually that this bloated and dangerous military budget is actually robbing us of more than half of our discretionary dollars in our national budget. It is the biggest portion of the budget, 54%. Do you know what the next biggest expenditure is after the military at 54%? The next biggest is 7%. So we basically have a military budget with a lot of footnotes around it. I know, almost nobody knows this. It's absolutely incredible. That's why we need to be on the debate stage. Nobody knows. Nobody knows that it's almost half of your income tax dollars that are paying for these catastrophic failed wars. And in fact, what have we gotten with these wars that cost us, by the way, $6 trillion, according to a recent Harvard study? $6 trillion for just Iraq and Afghanistan alone, when you include the cost of caring for our wounded veterans. That cost has delivered what? Failed states, mass refugee migrations, and worse terrorist threats. So we are calling for a new foreign policy, not based on economic and military domination, but rather on international law, on human rights, and on diplomacy. And we say, in answer to the threat of ISIS, we say not more of the same policy, not more of the bombs and bullets that merely create the next wave of terrorism, because every terrorist cause that we have fought has, guess what, just gotten bigger and broader and more terror from those same parties. So instead of just doing them a favor and recruiting more people to the terrorist caused by terror from the skies in the form of state terror from the skies. Instead, we need a new kind of offensive in the Middle East called a peace offensive. It starts with a weapons embargo, and then it includes a freeze on the bank accounts of those countries that continue to support these terrorist enterprises. Who Hillary Clinton herself identified as still the leading sponsor of extremism, of this kind of terrorist extremism around the world. So we and our allies got this going, if you go way back to Afghanistan, where we supported the creation of this international extremist movement in order to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. The CIA and the Saudis together created this international extremist movement, and that has come back to bite us in a big way. So instead of thank you, and everything you say is true too, I gotta say. You are totally an inspiration and give me so much hope to come here and hear from the stage and out in the hallways. You know, there is a rebellion that is involved. Instead of fighting terrorism with one hand, with the other hand, we and our allies have been funding terrorism and arming terrorism and training terrorism. So we can put an end to this. We got it started, we can get it stopped. And we can actually work with the Russians. Right now, Obama and Putin are working together, but for the wrong reason. They're working together to drop bombs on Syria. We should be working together to create a joint weapons embargo to the whole region in order to stop applying a flamethrower to the conflicts in the Middle East. That is what the weapons industry, which is the one winner here. We are not promoting democracy. We are not promoting stability in the Middle East. We are not promoting women's rights and tolerance in the Middle East. In fact, quite to the contrary. So we know how to do this and we can. Let me mention a couple other things because we want to have some time for some back and forth and also some time for some selfies and things like that. So I have to mince my words here, but let me name a couple other things because above all, I want you to walk out of here knowing how much power we have. In the words of Alice Walker, the famous poet, the novelist, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. Of student loan debt because there's an entire generation which is locked into this predatory debt, and there is only one campaign and one candidate that is committed to ending that student loan debt. We bailed out the freaking bankers on Wall Street who crashed the economy. It's time to bail out the students who are everybody you know, because, and here's the rub, there are 43 million young people and not so young people trapped in student loan debt, and 43 million is enough to win a three-way presidential race. Tell you that we are some irrelevant footnote in this election. We actually are the power in this election, and it's not only 43 million young people locked in debt, it's also 27 million Latinos who vote, who have learned that the Republicans are the party of hate and fear, but the Democrats are the party of deportation, detention, and night raids. And remember this, a recent poll showed that over 50% of millennials are considering voting for a third-party candidate. Millennials have always been the ones to see the future clearly and to lead the charge into that future. So if we get the word out to the millennials, to the people who are in debt, and they start to stand up, then everybody will start to stand up for what we all want, which is a new way forward, a politics of integrity based on democracy, justice, and human We not only deserve to end predatory student debt and to bail out the students, and by the way, it's far less than what they came up with to bail out Wall Street. That was 16 trillion. We only need 1.3 trillion. We can come up with that money in a million ways, including, for example, it's time to start taxing Wall Street. We only need a liberated political system that's working for us, not for the predatory banks, the fossil fuel giants, and the war profiteers. We need a government working for us. A couple other things real quick just to mention, because these two are things that are within our reach. If we get elected, believe me, we have the firepower to keep going. If we have the ground troops to get into office, we have the ground troops to mobilize, to flood the offices of our congressmen and our senators, because it's we who are the engine of democracy, not the lobbyists. One issue at a time, we can drive this agenda forward. And that also means creating public higher education, which is free as a human right. As healthcare for everyone as a human right. It also means a welcoming path to citizenship for the immigrants who have always been at the heart of our economies, our communities, and our culture. Concerned about this crisis of immigration, know that the most important thing we can do about this crisis of immigration is to stop causing it in the first place. We can ensure that Black Lives Matter, what the speaker was suggesting before, a police review board, so that police are accountable to the community, And every community should have an independent investigator, so that every death at the hands of police is investigated. Every family is owed an explanation. Every victim is due their turn at justice. So independent investigators can ensure that that happens. We also need to end the war on drugs and treat drug users. Not a criminal problem, and all the people who have been wrongly incarcerated for nonviolent is less harmful than alcohol and tobacco. They deserve to be pardoned and to be sent back into their communities with health care, with education, with access to that we can create. An America and a world that actually works for all of us. The power to create that world is not just in our hopes, it's not just in our dreams. This is why we say it's time to forget the lesser evil, fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it. Because in fact, they do. To create that America and that world that works for all of us. The power to create that world is, in fact, right here, right now, in Tampa, across Florida, across this country. That power is in our hands the minute we stand up with the courage of our convictions and lead the way forward. The world is there for our making. Thank you so much.